Try It Out Loud, a podcast by Chasing the Rainbows with your host, Bernice Quisenberry.
This week's podcast episode is called Western Medicine Out Loud. And with this being Maternal Health and Mental Health Awareness Month for May, we have nurse practitioner Kara Moss-Murray on our podcast today. And she has been practicing traditional medicine throughout her career, but is now transitioning to a more controversial and unconventional medical practice in our nation after she went through her own baby loss and fertility loss journey. So welcome, Kara. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And, I just can't thank you enough for being willing to talk about this for our listeners and for them to hear a little bit more about Western medicine and what it looks like and how it really impacted your life. And, for our listeners, can you share, your lost journey with them?
Yeah, sure. So, I currently have 3 beautiful boys. I had them, when my late 20s, early 30s. When my youngest was about 2, I knew that I wanted another one, a girl specifically. And when I went down this path, unfortunately, my marriage kind of dissolved. So I was left trying to debate like how I was going to do this, and I decided to go the route of a sperm donor. So because it was so easy for me to conceive, I did go to a fertility clinic thinking that I would just do 1 round of IUI and that would be it. I picked the sperm donor. All my tests came back normal. Everything looked good. I went for the first round of IUI and it didn't work. I was kind of devastated just because I was paying out of pocket for that because my insurance didn't cover it because I wasn't somebody that was considered infertile. But it left me feeling a little jarred because I went back to the doctor and I was like, well, what happened? And, coming from being a nurse practitioner, I knew that she couldn't really give me much answers. All she said was, everything was perfect. It could have been a bad egg. That to me just wasn't acceptable. So basically, when I was looking at certain things, I had talked to a friend that also was going through like fertility, the IUI process and everything. And she said that she used acupuncture on her 6th round of IUI and ended up getting pregnant. So I looked into that. But at the time I was working with one of my good friends who is an amazing energy healer. And I just decided, she's helped me with all these other things. Like I contacted her and I was like, hey, I want you to help me get pregnant. So basically she was able to, through energy healing, be able to explain to me why I didn't get pregnant, because right before my first round of IUI, I actually had to stop it because I had a huge ovarian cyst. And I've had periods my entire life since I was 19. The only time I never had it was when I was pregnant. And mysteriously, when I had that ovarian cyst, my period stopped. So they had to halt that one treatment. So she said, number one, my uterus needed to heal. So we had to work on that. And there was a lot of clearing I needed to do energetically to allow for a baby to come in. So she determined that February was, because that happened in September, she determined that February was the time that I could try to conceive. And it worked. So I was thrilled. But about a week later, I miscarried. So, of course, that was a form of devastation for me because that was the very first time in my life that I've ever miscarried. So I was left feeling like, was this for me? Am I trying to do too much? Like, am I not meant to have, this baby girl? And it was kind of a lot. But it took me some time to kind of work through that. But like, there was just a burning desire of like me not being able to let go that I'm supposed to be a mom, also a daughter, not just my 3 boys. So during this time, I had actually started apprenticing under her because I just thought that this work was me. I saw like what it was doing for me and my children. And I decided to kind of work on myself. And once I was ready to start trying again, I determined like, let me do this in October. And I went again and found a different sperm donor that felt right. And yeah, I ended up getting pregnant, and this one stuck. And now I am not only currently 7.5 months pregnant, but I am also pregnant with my baby girl. So it's what I learned along this journey is that the reason why things happen, it's not medical. Like a lot of this stuff isn't medical. A lot of times, like the time when I miscarried, it really wasn't at a point where I was ready, subconsciously, and working through that really opened up doors for me because now I'm in a place where I can not only bring in this baby girl to a beautiful, peaceful environment, I'm financially stable to be able to do this, and there's just other reasons why, like, divine timing is real as well.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, with a fertility loss journey, sometimes well, a lot of times we don't get the answers and there's nothing to explain it. So, having different options or trying different methods can be so helpful, where, um, just like you said, and this, you know, what you did with your healing and things like that seemed to work for you.
Yeah.
And, think talking through what does that look like? What is it? Like, for example, like what made you seek out alternative healing medicine and why are you so passionate about it outside of it working and things like that?
Yeah. I've been a nurse practitioner for almost 10 years, in healthcare for longer than that. And, I came to this space because I wanted to help people. But over time, I just realized, especially with the women that were coming to me saying they wanted a baby, and it bothered me when medicine was showing them that it was be impossible. And when I would get that from patients, I would always say nothing is impossible. Like if you want to be a mom, you can be a mom. And I guess I went down this route because I just noticed that there's other things that are impacting us that, traditional medicine just cannot acknowledge simply because they just don't have the technology to do so, or the research to back it up at this point, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. And so alternative medicine just, especially with energy healing, it can not only help heal the body, but it can help bring a little bit more understanding that it's like there's nothing wrong with your body. Like there's other layers that are impacting us, that are impacting our body. But once we clear these layers that are impacting our body, then our body works just fine. Um, so I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away. I've had other stories like with my kids that, like, if I didn't take this route, like one of my kids probably would be wearing a hearing aid right now. You'd be deaf. Like really startling things that energy healing has really worked to address and clear.
Yeah. And you're right, like, there isn't enough and, just like we said, like, research on any of this, like, not just, traditional medicine, like, there's just not enough on, like, energy healing too, and I almost, like, wish that there was more studies done, that could I mean, outside of hearing testimonials and things like that, but, to really back it up unless there is, Karen, I just don't know about it. Is there?
There's not as many studies, no. And I think from what I've read, because there was a great book recommended to me called Vibrational Medicine, and he was a medical doctor that spent years, really researching this stuff. And basically, what I took away from it is just, I don't think it's so much that traditional medicine doesn't want to, but they just don't have, they're very focused on like to prove it. And unfortunately, we don't have the sophisticated technology right now to
Yeah.
prove that this stuff, exists. But I feel like we are kind of moving in that direction because a lot of people now are just tired of taking pills and like being like,
Yeah.
well, fix this with this. But it's like, but can you tell me like something else? Isn't there something else out there that I can do? So I think
Yeah.
slowly I see people being more open to looking at other things and other options.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because, this form of medicine won't be for everybody, but it's also that alternative like we're talking about, instead of going down IUI or IVF, like maybe trying this. And just saying, when my husband and I were going through our secondary infertility journey, this is something if I would have known about, I probably would have tried.
Mm.
Just because, just to see. And that's the thing when you're saying energy healing, um, and then having to like clear the area before you were trying and things like that. Can you explain that just a little bit more?
Mhm. Sure. So how it was explained to me is like we have multiple different layers on top of our physical self. And in these different layers, a lot of times, or even in the body too, we store different emotions is the biggest one, trauma. Um, and there's different modalities in energy healing. I think the ones that a lot of people are more accustomed to hearing are things like acupuncture, Reiki.
Yes.
Um, so with that, it helps with like proper energy flow. Because if you're like clogged up somewhere, say, then it's hard for your physical body to really function the way that it's supposed to. But the impact of just trauma on our lives, I mean, it's not just physical, it's like things that happen around you,
Yeah.
situations, in this case, having a baby or having loss, there is meaning behind that. And um, like I said, like sometimes with these different modalities, once it's able to clear these certain things, like sometimes it leads you on this path to be able to clear it so that you can bring this beautiful human being into this space, with just better energy in general.
Right. Well, and like you said, with the, pregnancy, after loss or experiencing loss or anything like that, they're all traumatic losses
Yeah.
when we're dealing with miscarriage, stillbirth, any pregnancy loss or infant loss. And so, um, really, working on healing in certain areas and with trauma and all of that, right. This is definitely another form of, um, medicine to try.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So what has been your experience with it, and what are the different practices that you've studied and actually done on yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, so I study with her name is Reverend Alexis Ansley. We actually went to high school together. She's one of my best friends. So what she has actually trained me on is something called matrix work, which is a little bit different. It's not the same as like acupuncture and Reiki, but what it does is our bodies are surrounded by matrices basically. So we basically go into there and find out, what kind of needs to be cleared. All different types of things come up. Definitely, emotions is the biggest source of a lot of these things. Um, and sometimes, different experiences are also linked into that. But that's the form that I've studied.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, uh, not all treatments are meant for everyone. And because everyone's journey is so different, what they're going through, how they're processing everything, and getting to a point where, they're making decisions and what works for them. But for someone looking to dip their toes into this alternative practice, where would you tell them to start?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I
Yeah.
think it would depend on the person. Um, what I usually tell people is like to do your research about different ones. I find that it's a little easier for people to do the ones that are less more accessible to them, I guess. Like I said, like the puncture and things like that. The great thing about this work, specifically like what I do, is like you don't need to be in front of the person, so it's like a little bit more convenient to be able to just stay in your home and do
Yeah.
it first, and also in a space that you're more comfortable in too. Um, but yeah, I think it depends on the person. And even just going to like different free events to learn a little bit more might open up somebody's eyes to, what else can be out there, because I don't even know all of them. I'm learning every day, all the different types of practices. But there's just there's a lot to choose from. And then as you go into it, you'll probably be exposed to more and more things that you want to try. And what I would say is, like, you don't have to just stick with one. You know what I mean? Everybody offers something a little bit different, and I think that they all can help somebody.
Yeah. No, and that's so true. With just trying, like you said, acupuncture, Reiki, it's really interesting because hearing it and then your matrix system that you use too, Kara, there's so much to take in on all of it. And like you said, and trying which one to see what works for you or what fits in with what you're looking for. Um, because the benefits, can you talk a little bit more about like what the benefits are like? Like what did you experience when you were going through, your healing process?
Yeah. I think, like, probably the biggest thing I could say is, specifically on this pregnancy journey is, because I'm not really feeling anything, because I'm not in pain or anything like that, but just a sense of peace, understanding. Um, and you're gonna have moments where you're just so unsure, about, is this really for me? But I think as you go along, and I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in God. I feel like as I've gone along, I've gotten a lot closer to God, and I feel like, um, over time, it was just clear. It's just like, Kara, this was meant for you. The journey here is not what you originally intended it to be, but there's a reason for everything.
Yeah.
And now that I'm not to the end of the road because she's not here yet, but I'm like almost there.
Yeah.
Um, I can't say that I would have done it any differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I definitely think for women in this space, it's the feeling of like hopelessness that can really kind of get you, discouraged. Um, and I think that as you start to get into this, you'll realize that, no, this is for me. Um, and even though this hasn't looked the way I wanted it to look, the ending can be the same.
Yeah. Now, specifically when you were going through your fertility loss journey and then after your miscarriage, what did this do for both of those for you?
Mm. I really had to look deep,
Yeah.
because I guess I had to. I realized, like, the reasons for it, because you could easily say my egg was bad, right?
Yeah.
Something in my body went wrong. No, actually, I was not at a job where that was conducive for me to have a child. Um, I I wasn't at peace at certain other areas in my, so subconsciously, I do feel like my body did do this, because I think I got pregnant to let me know I can. Because after the first one, where nothing happened at all, I had serious thoughts about my body. Um, what if I can't get pregnant at all? So it was just to let me know, Kara, you can't get pregnant. There's something wrong with your body, but you need to handle some of these other things before you do this. Um, and then just also, um, just getting to, I guess, a better place spiritually for me was very important. Um, because I knew I didn't want to do it necessarily the same way that I've done with my other three, um, being older and things like that. So just understanding the reasons beyond my body, because to just zone in on the body can just leave you very stuck. And it's like, it's just not about that.
Yeah. It really sounds like this is almost spiritually healing, right? And emotionally healing, mentally healing, on top of the physical. And it's looking at it holistically and how, you can feel, or this is like a way that someone could go down like with healing in those other areas if they wanted to venture down this way. Is that what you felt, Kara?
Yeah, for sure. Because with me personally, like I said, like I was going through things like my marriage was dissolving, so I was getting a divorce and all those things, and it's it's scary to think that it's like I'm going to do this by myself and have 4 kids. So I had to really work through a lot of things like that. And I think with any other, I mean, most people have a partner, so you want to make sure that your relationship is good there with the person, and that's going to also impact your journey. And I just don't know from my own experience with doctors and fertility clinics, and even as a nurse practitioner, what I've seen, I don't know if they acknowledge some things sometimes in that space. They definitely have support groups for it. Um, but I think that therapy is wonderful. I think it's very wonderful, but sometimes it makes it easier when you clear the energy around it. Um, so it just makes it a little more seamless to kind of get there.
Yeah. So yeah, so this being, like another option, because that's what we, always talk about at Chasing the Rainbows is giving yourself those options or knowing what options are out there for what works for you. Because, support groups and a mentorship or, therapy, yoga, breath work, meditation, nervous system regulation, like all that stuff might work for me, but that might not work for somebody else. So, looking at and hearing from your personal experience, Kara, how this has impacted your life and now you're, making a career of it, I think is, so beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the other great thing about this is like it really, since we're tapping into you as a person, it's really personalized for you.
Yeah.
Because sessions I've had with people, it's it's always different. It's not a one size fits all.
Right. Right. And
Different.
And it's nice too that you can do this practice, the one that you specifically are doing virtually. So that makes it, more convenient, fits it into your schedule, especially when a survivor is on a fertility loss journey and they already have a lot of appointments or other medical things, going on. Like this, they can fit into it, and then figure out what works and what doesn't for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
No, that's great. If you could leave our listeners with one major takeaway from today's podcast together, what would it be?
Mhm. I would say
I
like
know
don't
that's a
give up.
big question. Sorry, go ahead.
um, I would say don't give up hope, and just don't give up in general. Um, like I said, if you have that burning desire to be a mom or to have more children, it's there for a reason. And I wouldn't let anybody tell you otherwise, because depending on your situation, people may have a lot to say. Um,
Yes, we know that. That's for sure.
yeah, exactly. But like what's for you is for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Kara. That was so beautifully said. And, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and maybe have a consult or have a further conversation about it, how can they do that?
Oh yeah, you can reach out to me through contact@intangiblewellness.com. That's probably the best way. I do have a
Okay.
website um so those are two options where you can
Yeah.
find
So
me.
yeah, we'll make sure to put your website in our description of the podcast. So then if anyone wants to find you or reach out, they can through your website or through the email address, like you said, Kara. But yeah. So for anybody out there still having some questions or, any follow-ups, you can reach out to us too on our podcast and we can on our podcast website and we can get you connected to Kara or, like I said, we'll have the links available to you in the bio of this. So Kara, thank you so much for being on here and for, opening up this discussion, like I said, on a very controversial topic. That, is starting to become popular in our nation and really starting to gain traction as, being a different form that we can look at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate you having me and be able to speak on this platform.
Great. Oh, thanks so much, Kara. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and please follow and subscribe to our podcast to help us reach more survivors. And we're always with you, fertility loss, pregnancy loss, and infant loss survivors. Until next time, thanks so much again, Kara.
Yes, no problem. Thank you.